So now let's take a look at the other collection, the users one, and let's actually get to the actual sub collection. This thing, the links sub collection within the users one. So on this thing, all right, so this is the user path. This is the path where we are inside the users collection. Then this thing is the user UID, this thing. Then we are inside of the link sub collection, and these are like all the links that the user created within this collection. So let's actually use the same method. I think it's easier to understand as well as to explain. So there are two types of operations. There is read and there is. So I think that's good. So now let's actually take a look into the create operation. So should any user be able to create any document within this collection, within this sub collection to say? Well, yes, that's how it works. That's how the application works. The user should be able to create documents which are essentially the shortened links. But the catch is only the authenticated users, and that too only the owner whose user UID matches to this one. Not this, but the respective one. Only that specific user should be able to create documents within this sub collection. So that's one thing off the list. Now the other thing is, along with this check, the first check that the user is trying to create a document within its own path, along with this thing, we will also be adding few other checks. So as we know that the Cloud Firestore is a no SQL database, it's schemaless, which means that we cannot add some sort of like a fixed structure for the documents. They don't have to comply with the structure, to say in better words, which means that if we don't add certain restrictions, anyone can skip fields or they can add in some extra ones which we don't really expect. And by using the security rules, we need to ensure that this doesn't happen. So the first thing in terms of these checks we will be doing is no other field should be within this document except these 5 that we have. So that's one thing that we will be checking. The other thing is for individual fields, starting with the created at thing, this thing, we will be making sure that it's a timestamp, a server timestamp, and that too of the current time. That's one thing. The other thing is the long URL, this thing. So we will be using the same regex, the same regular expression that we used on the client side, because it's the client side, we cannot solely trust that thing. It is possible for the user to bypass those validations, and thus we need to have the same sort of validations on the security rules, or to say the backend. So we will be using the same regex which is possible in security rules. Then about the name, the same sort of checks, that the name should be greater than 3 and less than 15 characters. That's one thing. And about the shortcode, well, this is the interesting part. We will be using that exists method, kind of like a tongue twister. This thing, it's actually exists. I kind of said it as exist. Anyway, so we will be using this thing to check within the root level links collection whether or not a document exists with the same shortcode that the user is trying to add in. Because if it does, it means that the user is trying to create a duplicate shortcode, which is something that we don't want. And the other thing is, which you might be thinking, that what if it happens naturally? Well, it's going to be extremely rare if that happens, because Nano ID uses alphanumeric, that too uppercase, lowercase, with the underscore and the dash. So it's something which is almost impossible. Well, it is possible, but we can assume that the only time that it happens, the user is intentionally trying to do so. So that's how we will be ensuring that it doesn't happen, by using this thing. Then about the total clicks, for the create operation, we will be checking that it has to be 0, like the first time, or to say when the document is getting added. The other thing is, using the security rules, there is no way to add in default values, and that's why these are few things like the total clicks as well as the created at, which we can only check on the security rules. We cannot add in default values. Well, that can be done if we use the cloud functions, but that's a different thing. The point is, we will be ensuring that the structure is right. So I think that's it for the create part. Anyone can do that, only the authenticated, and that to the owner, and few other validation checks that we discussed over here. Now let's talk about the update. Well, for the update, anyone can update the document. Doesn't matter whether they are authenticated, doesn't matter whether they are the owner, anyone can do the update operation, as we are incrementing the total clicks, that this thing that we have from the client side. So it means that we do need to allow the update operation, but we will be adding certain restrictions as well, certain conditions, certain checks, which includes, actually let me just remove the entire thing. Okay, so like anyone can update the document, but the condition being that they cannot update any other field. What is this? I'm kind of confused with all the hotkeys. They cannot update any other fields except the total clicks, and that too if it is being incremented by 1. Only then they can update the document. Even the owner cannot do so. Even the one who created a shortened link, even the owner should not be able to update any other fields. That's how this application works, and that's how we have structured it. So the update can happen. Anyone can do this. Doesn't have to be the owner. Doesn't matter whether they are authenticated. Anyone can do this, but they can only increment the total clicks by 1. So that's the other thing of the list. And then for the delete one, well, actually it's kind of the same as the create, only the owner can delete the document. So I think that's how the write operations are going to look like. Now as per the read ones, and well, actually for the read ones, only the owner can do this thing. It doesn't matter the get or the list, they can do this thing. They can get their own links which they have created, which is kind of obvious. So I think that's it for the rules. Okay, well, I might be missing something. I'm not quite sure because this is the first time. Well, honestly, not the first time, because I'm re-recording this video because of some like technical issues. So as a rough idea, I think this is it. This is how we need to do this thing. Okay, so I think now that we have a very rough idea of what we need to do, we can actually dive into writing the rules. So yep, let's do that.